Hello and welcome to Alabama Care, y'all. Today, we have a special guest. We have Miss Tracy Cieniewicz here with Alabama Lifespan Respite Care, and today she's going to go over a lot of information in regards to respite care here in Alabama. First of all, Tracy, why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know some things about you.
Sure. My name again is Tracy Cieniewicz, and I have worked with UCP Huntsville, which is our parent organization, for 14 years. I started out in community awareness and fundraising, um, grant writing, doing the website. The wonderful thing about working for a nonprofit truly is that you get to wear a lot of different hats. So I learned a lot about UCP, about individuals with disabilities, about their caregivers, and the teaching and healthcare professionals who work alongside those families through my community awareness efforts and grant writing efforts and fundraising efforts for UCP Huntsville, and eventually moved into some program support. So I worked with our assistive technology program that was funded through ADRS and STAR that we had for several years. I was the director of that for a few years. And then 3 years ago, I became the director of Alabama Lifespan Respite. And so I'm also still the sustainability director for UCP Huntsville, so I continue to do grant writing and other support for our agency as a whole. But my background, I graduated from the University of North Alabama with a language arts degree, and I was a newspaper journalist for 6 years before I started working with UCP Huntsville.
Wow, so you're kind of used to this like face-to-face interaction and interviewing and working with the public and the people in general as a whole, having that background.
Yes, I love
So
love
what
to work
exactly
with
does
people.
UCP stand for?
UCP stands for United Cerebral Palsy, and there are six UCP Alabama affiliates statewide. We are all independent affiliates, and so that means we are all governed locally by a board of directors, and we all choose, independently what programs and services that we provide to individuals in our service area. So here in Huntsville, we have two UCP centers. We have the UCP Therapy Center and we have the UCP Training Center, and that's where I am. The UCP Therapy Center, we provide occupational, physical, and speech therapies to children up to age 19 with developmental delays and disabilities. We do that through early intervention and through outpatient therapy. And then we also have a variety of support services for their families. We have parent support groups, we have preschool readiness classes, we have family fun times where families can come together and kind of meet other families. It's a family connections program. And so they can, create their own support systems through families who understand what they're going through. And so that therapy center serves 6 counties in North Alabama. It's Madison, Morgan, Marshall, Limestone, Jackson, and Coleman. And everything that we do at the UCB Therapy Center is free or very low cost. So we never deny a client family services based on the ability to pay. If you have exhausted your medical benefits, we have fundraising and scholarships and things to cover that. So we're never going to turn you away because you can't pay a copay or because like I said, your insurance has been exhausted. We're going to welcome you, find a way to cover that, because we don't want children to lose skills and things that they have gained through that OTPT and speech. We want them to continue on that path of gaining momentum in those skills. So that's what we do at UCP Huntsville at the Therapy Center. And then our UCP Training Center, where I am, we have 5 statewide programs, and Alabama Lifespan is one of those. The other statewide programs that we have are SEEP. It's Child Care Inclusion with a Purpose. And what they do is they go into child care centers all over the state. Like I said, they're truly statewide too. And they train child care providers for inclusion of children with special needs into typical classroom settings. All of that's free. It's free training. They get educational kits. They get lots of supports. That's a great program. We also have First Five Alabama, which is infant and child mental health services. We have Help Me Grow Alabama, which supports children up to age 8 to be able to get them in school. And then we have a brand new one that's funded through the Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities called Tourism Alabama. And it's a new program that helps families of children with autism get ready to travel, and it helps the hotels where they're traveling to be trained and ready for those kids with autism to be a guest there. So they have it's sensory inclusion for kids with autism. So that's what we do here at the UCP Training Center. So we're very busy, and Alabama Lifespan Respite is just a part of the puzzle. And we're, like I said, we're all supported by UCP Huntsville.
That's really amazing. And you had mentioned earlier that one of the biggest things is just making sure that they don't lose their skills that they have learned, hitting those certain milestones. And that's really important, especially with children with cerebral palsy, because it's already hard enough for some of these individuals to be able to make progression. So when they stop receiving certain programs or receiving certain benefits, it's really important for them to figure out ways to kind of continue doing those things. And that's a great thing that you're doing. And I really love how you were talking about the sensory things that you're working with the different hotels, and making sure that all of their children with cerebral palsy with autism are taken in consideration when it comes to like traveling. I've been noticing a lot of different events have been popping up in places that are specifically for children's with autism or sensory issues, and it's really great to see them getting that kind of inclusion. So that's wonderful. Y'all definitely have your hands busy.
We do. And, like I said, I worked in awareness, for UCP for a long time doing community awareness. And one of the things that always I love to see the look on people's faces when I tell them, we're so much more than our name. And we serve not only children with cerebral palsy, but children and adults with any disability. So currently, our clients represent over 180 different diagnoses. So we truly serve the
Wow.
lifespan and any developmental delay or disability.
Well, with all that being said, how was ALR established? How was it funded?
So at our UCP Center in 1994, they saw a great need for caregiver support. So through the Alabama Department of Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention, they had a grant available called the Children's Trust Fund. And so in 1994, we started the Hearts Respite Voucher Respite Program, and it was for caregivers of children up to age 19 who had any developmental delay or disability. And voucher respite is a reimbursement program, so it was purely just to give that caregiver a short break and reimburse them for taking that break. That was such a successful model. We were able to work with the other 5 UCP affiliates across the state to have it replicated in every UCP affiliate. So it became a statewide program, but administered by each UCP affiliate. Um, through working with those caregivers for the 0 to 19 population, birth to 19 population, we saw there was a greater need, that there were more caregivers out there. Caregiving doesn't end at 19. When you're a child, it's 19, and things happen. There are aging related disabilities. You may have a loved one who's had an accident and has now requires care. There are lots of reasons that you become a caregiver all of a sudden. So to further support those caregivers, or to begin to support those caregivers, in the year 2000, we established Alabama Lifespan Respite here at UCP Huntsville, and formed a task force of about 45 different volunteers from state agencies and other nonprofits. It was all agencies and organizations that already served individuals with disabilities and their caregivers. That task force developed a plan and wanted to identify what are the respite needs of caregivers in Alabama, what gaps are there, what barriers are there to receiving respite assistance. So they did some work. They, did some research. They gathered some information, and they went to our legislators and they said, our caregivers need some support. They need some help, and the legislative partners listened, and so they secured state funding for Alabama Lifespan Respite, and over a period of time, we were established as the leading entity for respite in the state of Alabama. And in 2009, we received our first lifespan respite grant at the federal level. And those state dollars I mentioned before were used as a match. You have to have a match for a federal grant. So it was great. We already had those state dollars and that support at the legislative level in place. And so we got that support going through the federal grant, and it's administered by the Administration on Community Living. And they're 3-year grant cycles. And we're glad to say that through all this time, we have been able to keep that grant support going both at the federal level and at the state level. And that federal grant is administered through the Alabama Department of Senior Services. So they are our grant partner to administer those funds. But it is a universal program. So even though ADSS, Department of Senior Services, administers that federal grant for us, that doesn't mean we only serve seniors. It is a lifespan respite grant, and one of only 17 in the nation that we're a part of that we use those funds for, and it is universal, so that it truly serves the lifespan, birth through end of life. And we do seek grants continually to further support what we already have going on, so we can offer more direct respite to our caregivers, and then create new programs and support to make their respite experience better. So that's kind of how we're funded and how we got started.
That's amazing. That's really great to see how far y'all have come. I think you said established since like 1995 to where we are today. And you had mentioned that, you don't just service, the elderly, you service anybody who might be disabled or require or have a complex medical history. And I know we've thrown this word around a lot, but like, is there a certain type of group of people who are classified as caregivers? Is it only the people that come to the home, or are people like me, being a father of a single parent or a single father of a special needs child, do we fall underneath that category as a caregiver and to be able to possibly obtain some of those, the funding or aid that's actually being delivered out?
So a big obstacle that we have to overcome on a awareness level is, am I a caregiver? That is the biggest thing. A lot of people who are caregivers don't identify as a caregiver. So, who is a caregiver? Rosalind Carter, President Carter's wife, said it first and said it best. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. So, it's something that more than likely is going to happen to us in our lifetime, one of those 4 situations. So a caregiver, as we see it, is any family member or close friend who is providing care for an individual, full-time unpaid care, to assist them with activities of daily living. So those are, that's typically a parent, a spouse, a child, another family member. I know a lot of people who take care of extended family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents. Again, if you are the unpaid caregiver of our support system for any individual with a chronic illness or disability that requires full-time care, then you are a caregiver. A lot of people confuse caregiver and care provider. A care provider is the person you pay to come in and give you a break. So a lot of
Okay.
people, think that care providers are caregivers. A caregiver is that unpaid support system who is with the individual with a chronic illness or disability around the clock.
So, what is a consumer-directed personal choice option with respite?
Okay. So, what that means is um, the caregiver has control of who they choose as a care provider to come and take care of their loved one, who we refer to as a care recipient. If you're receiving care, you're the care recipient. So, consumer directed or personal choice option, you hear that term, those both of those terms used. But what that means is, let's say that you're on a Medicaid waiver, and Medicaid says, well, we're going to choose the agency for your home and community based services to give you a break. We're going to choose the agency, we're going to choose the care provider, and we're going to send someone into your home. But you, as the caregiver, are not comfortable having a stranger in your home. Um, you know, then at that point you can say, you know what, I have someone in mind, someone who already knows my loved one, knows their medical needs, that I'm comfortable with leaving in my home while I take a break. Then that's your choice as the consumer. That's a personal choice option. So what we do here is work directly with caregivers who have chosen the consumer directed respite. So we work with other agencies to facilitate that. And so it just gives the caregiver a little bit more power to choose who stays with their loved one while they take a break.
So then our personal choice. So if I had my own personal choice option, would we be able to contact you or that person that I would want, contact your agency to be able to employ them through the respite care services, or are y'all only your provider for consumer directed?
So the way that our program works is, um, like I said, we're universal respite. And through our program, if you're enrolled with Alabama Lifespan Respite, we never send anyone into your home, and we don't recommend anyone to come into your home. That's part of that personal choice consumer, directed option. So um, we award you a certain amount of money to be able to reimburse you for paying an individual to come in. So um, when we talk about the application process, it may make a little bit more sense. But it depends on what agency you're working with, whether you can do consumer directed or personal choice option respite. But if you are enrolled through Alabama Lifespan Respite, that's how we're going to work. You're going to choose your provider, you're going to pay them, we're going to reimburse you. But like I said, we never send anyone into the home, and we don't have a listing of available care providers. So typically, what that means is, your neighbor next door, or someone from church, or another family member is that person that you're going to trust to stay with your loved one while you take a break.
Okay, so just for everybody's knowledge out there, if you're working with Alabama Lifespan Respite, they do not provide actual consumer directed personnel. This is just saying that you're either going to state yourself more as a caregiver or you have somebody already in mind, and y'all will help them be able to kind of get into that program and reimbursed for their services offered. So are
Correct.
there different types of respite services? Like in school or in facilities, or is it solely at home?
So, in the time of COVID right now, right now it is at home. A lot of those community-based services haven't opened back up, but hopefully, with vaccinations going away, they are. But hopefully, we'll get there soon. But in non-pandemic times, yes, there are lots of community-based respite services available. Typically, those are offered through churches. There are lots of churches around the state who have either respite nights, like where you can, do drop off for kids and, have a date night or just a night out. Or there are day programs more for the adult population. that, they can go 5 days a week, and that's where they do activities and have their meals. And, those are fee based. So, the way our program works, we can reimburse for that community based service as well as someone coming into your home and providing the care. So, again, it's that consumer choice, whichever is the best fit for you and your care recipient. It's up to you. You can direct those funds however works best for you and your loved one. And
That's
we do
amazing.
have a database available online of those free community resources, like those faith based resources. We do have that online just as a reference point. So you can go on and click on your county and see what churches are offering respite services.
That's amazing. Being a caregiver myself, it's really wonderful knowing that there's different ways and multiple avenues that we can actually get a break. Because being a parent of especially a child, we're doing this full time. So every now and then
Yeah,
we do need a break, and that's really great to
yeah,
hear that there's multiple services out there that allow us to do that.
that's right.
What happens in case of an emergency, though? Is there
Yeah.
emergency respite services?
There are. We have emergency respite funding available, and it's completely separate from our regular respite. So, emergency respite is for caregivers who are in an emergent situation. So, if you, as the caregiver, if you have had an accident or you are sick and you're hospitalized, if you have to have a surgery, maybe you have to attend a funeral out of state, any emergent situation that requires you to be away from your care recipient for a period of time, you can email us or call us, and we'll be able to, in most situations, award you some funding quickly so you can attend to your emergent situation and have peace of mind that you can pay a care provider to come in and stay with your care recipient while you're attending to your emergency.
And once again, it's just the funding that y'all are providing for us to find that proper care. It's not like you all will be sending in like a skilled respite worker. So I want to make sure everybody is aware of that too as well.
Yes,
Um,
that's
I have a question here, but it's almost implied here. Why is it important for caregiver, or why is respite care important for caregivers? I mean, we all know it's because we deserve and we need a break. We can't
right.
do this full time. Are there some other key important things that you can hit on the reasons why we as caregivers deserve respite care or need respite care?
Yes. Well, the primary purpose of respite is to give relief to those family caregivers from the extraordinary and intense demands of providing that ongoing care in the home. It's a big job, and you have to take care of yourself to continue to be able to take care of your loved one. Um, we have seen time and time again where the caregiver becomes physically unable to take care of their care recipient any longer, or you know worst case scenario, sometimes they even end up in long-term care or even die before their care recipient because they haven't stopped and attended to their own needs. They haven't gone to their medical appointments regularly, even though they get their care recipient to every medical appointment. They do everything exactly right for their care recipient, but they don't stop and take care of themselves. They don't go to those medical appointments, get exercise, socialize, uh, meditate, and relax. Those things we all have to do to take care of ourselves. Self care is so important as a caregiver. So, respite gives them the opportunity to do those things. And it strengthens the ability of those caregivers to continue to provide care in the home. And it just supports their overall health and well being, mentally and physically.
Definitely. And then that's one thing I liked how you ended that with like mentally, because it can be very mentally straining. Also always being a care provider, taking care of your care recipient and not taking care of yourself. And it's one of those things that I tell friends and families and friends and families who have caregiver or care recipients themselves. If you don't take care of yourself, how can you expect to take care of them long term? So that's really important. That's amazing that y'all are able to provide the funding for that. That's awesome. I know we've kind of went over the respite reimbursement program. At the end of this video, we will provide links to the Alabama Lifespan Respite Care, showing everybody how to apply for that, for the respite reimbursement program. Um, and I noticed that on there when I was going through the website, y'all have some education material and some caregiver resources.
Mhm.
What does some of that look like in the span of Alabama Lifespan Respite?
Sure. Before we go on, I did want to say respite is important for the care recipient too, because believe it or not, sometimes they need a break from you too. And a lot of people forget that, but it's true.
Yes.
Sometimes they like to see a different face. I have some different experiences. And also, we always like to remind people that, respite's important for the care recipient because if their caregiver is well rested, it reduces that possibility of abuse and neglect as a result of caregiver burnout. And it also helps prevent premature out of home placement for the care recipient. So the longer their caregiver is able to take care of them, the longer they're able to stay in their home. And that's what we want. We want that. So some of our education that we're talking about talks about just that. How do you take a break while you're at home, while you're caregiving? What are some techniques to reduce stress? What does caregiving look like for a male caregiver as opposed to a female caregiver? Roughly, I went back and looked at the stats. Roughly 90% of the caregivers on our respite program are female. So the male caregiver population is very small. So they have different, we all have unique challenges. So what does that look like for the male caregiver, and how can you be further supported? Um, we talk about stress, as related to certain circumstances. Maybe it may be stress because of the pandemic. Maybe it's stress because your care recipient's health is declining. Maybe it's stress because your financial situation is hard. Caregivers shoulder a lot of financial stress. And so, we talk about all those kind of things. We talk about laughter, how to laugh and find the joy in caregiving because it's not all bad. It's not. I'm sure you can attest to that. It's not like, it's hard, but it's not sad, and it doesn't have to be depressing. There's joy to be found in every day and every situation with your care recipient. So we want to help them find that joy. We talk about grief, as related to not just grief of losing someone, but grief of maybe losing your independence, or your care recipient losing their independence, uh, isolation, just lots of different things. And so we have all this education available for free to our, not just to the caregivers who are on our program, but any caregiver in the state of Alabama who wants to take advantage of it. In non-pandemic times, we go out into communities. We partner with churches and with community centers and senior centers, and anybody who'll have us agencies, and collaborate with those organizations within the community to bring respite education to their area. We had to pivot like everybody else during the pandemic and start to bring it a new way. We had really never done online education before because um, we didn't know how responsive our audience would be to it. We serve caregivers in very rural areas. We didn't know if they had access to good internet or not. We didn't know if they had the technology available to be able to access it online, and we were pleasantly surprised. Our numbers have gone up dramatically in the number of attendees in our caregiver education, and we do that via Zoom. And we also have recorded education that you can do on your own timeline. So when the pandemic, starts to change and we get life kind of back to normal, we will resume some of that on site in the community respite, but we will always continue to have the online respite education because we have seen that a lot of caregivers just can't get out of the home to be able to attend those on site education opportunities. And we're glad to have the ability to access it online. So we'll always continue to do that now. That's something that has changed for us.
I want to definitely touch back on something you had said earlier that I never even knew of it as a phrase, but as soon as you said it, just made so much sense, like caregiver burnout. I didn't know exactly what to classify, what to call it as, but it's definitely a thing, and feeling as if that like you're doing everything you can for them, and you honestly don't have time for yourself because you don't have that respite care and that services. You start getting burned out, and that's one of the things that we want to make sure doesn't happen to the caregiver or the care recipient. Of that is the accidental side of neglect. It's really important that the care recipient gets as much care and attention as the caregiver. And one of the things you touched on was by providing that education. Now, with some of the education courses that you had mentioned before, are any of these education courses that individuals can take that allow them to actually kind of make a career out of something they already do as a living? Are there any kind of certificates or anything associated with that that might be able to help them get into a career path that's like, for instance, using myself as an example, that I might be able to use the education and skill set to work at as an aide at say a Linda Nolan school or children's rehab services. Is there funding behind that allowing to get certifications stating that you've learned this and that you've went through this education process?
We don't personally offer CEUs, but we do a lot of co-hosted education and events with our collaborative partners statewide. So there are a lot of times when we do partner with other agencies who offer those CEUs. And, it might be for care provision, it might be social work CEUs. It just depends on the partner. But when we advertise our education, that we personally have coming up, we do that through a monthly newsletter, and of course, we always have it online at alabamarescit.org. But we will, let you know CEUs are available. But on that calendar of events online, something we have done just this fiscal year is we have expanded what we offer there. We don't just list our events anymore. Any caregiver education that has taken place statewide, we list there. If we know about it, we're going to put it there. And a lot of those opportunities that are offered through our partners do offer CEUs. So you can always go there and look at those listings and see what CEU opportunities are available through those trainings.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. That's having all of those events. I can't stress it enough. Is just really important. Being able to get out, learn, and then also meet other people who kind of understand and be able to relate to that caregiver burnout or stress. Being able to vent, so to speak, is great. And also learn through that process is even an added benefit. So who qualifies for the respite reimbursement?
So with respite reimbursement, I do want to say when you attend a caregiver education that's offered through Alabama Lifespan Respite, once per year you are eligible to receive a respite stipend. And what that means is it is money you can use to take a short break. And this is kind of how we ease people into learning about respite and how to utilize our program. So it just kind of gives you a sample. It kind of gives you a taste of what a timesheet looks like and how our process goes. So with Alabama Lifespan Respite, when you apply, we have a real simple application. It's available online. Like you mentioned, we do have videos to help walk you through that. But we ask some real basic information about the caregiver, some basic information about the care recipient. Do require proof of diagnosis that just states your loved one has a diagnosis that requires full-time care. When we get that, we process it, and once you're ready to go with the program, we try to get those processed 2 weeks or less, and let you know either way if you qualify or not. Then we send you a welcome packet that explains the program and a timesheet. Your timesheet will have an award on it, an award amount and dates to be used. So for instance, it might be $400, and you have January 1st through March 31st to utilize those funds. At that point, you would identify a care provider. It can be anyone over the age of 18 who lives outside of your home. So it can be, like I said, a friend, a family member, somebody from church, anyone you trust to stay with your loved one. You negotiate a rate of pay with them. And for unskilled care, we keep up, with what everybody pays. And the average that we're seeing right now is about $10 an hour for unskilled care. And then you use that timesheet just to track when they were there giving you a break. And so you just say, they were here on this date for this many hours, this rate of pay. Once you have paid out of pocket up to that award amount, so again, $400, $10 an hour, is 40 hours of respite. You can take that an hour or two at a time in that time frame, or you can take it all in a weekend. Whatever you need personally to be able to rejuvenate, relax, and come back a better rested, stronger, ready to go caregiver. However you want to utilize that time and those funds is totally up to you. But once you have expended that award amount, once you have paid that out of pocket, you sign that timesheet, send it back to us, and we reimburse you for having taken that break. And you'll get a paper check in the mail from us. We try, our goal is always within 30 days. And then as funds are available, you'll receive another timesheet. We try to make this as easy as possible for our caregivers. We know you have a lot on your plate already. We don't want to make it laborious. We don't want to make it difficult. So like I said, we just will automatically send you the timesheets and the awards as they become available. We are grant funded. So, we don't know until the end of each quarter how much money we have to award because we don't know how many new caregivers have come on since then. We have to reevaluate at the end of every quarter. But if those funds are available, we're going to send them out to you. At the end of our fiscal year, we will send you a little survey to re-enroll so you never have to fill out that paperwork again. You just make sure that your caregiving situation is the same, that, your address, your phone number, check off those boxes, and then you're just automatically re-enrolled for the next year. So again, like I said, we want to make this as easy as possible for caregivers. And I think I skipped over, and I apologize, but a lot of people ask, do I qualify? So if you are the full-time unpaid family caregiver of an individual with a chronic illness or disability that requires full-time care, you qualify with this as long as you are not already receiving respite specific assistance from any other agency. You can be on their waiting list, but examples of those would be Medicaid waiver, home and community-based services, the VA, and Alabama Cares. So as long as you're not already receiving respite specific funds from them, you qualify to apply with Alabama Respite.
So we currently are enrolled in the E&D waiver program to receive respite care, but we have not received respite care in over 2.5 months. Uh, the main reason why is because we do actually have a home health nurse that's not part of the E&D waiver. It's actually straight through the agency and Medicaid itself. Are we allowed to still be able to receive that reimbursement for if we're, let's say, a single parent? What does that look like for a single parent who doesn't have those extra like respite care benefits? That's not rolled under a program.
So our program is, strictly for the caregiver. So, like I said, if the caregiver isn't receiving respite specific funding from any other source, then you're eligible. Um, you a lot of people will be on a program but have exhausted their funds for a period of time. Um, so if your funding is done with one program for a fiscal year, then you can enroll with us. Um, but if you are currently receiving any respite specific funds as the caregiver, these aren't tied to the care recipient funds, then you wouldn't be eligible. But if you aren't receiving any respite specific assistance, then you are eligible.
So with utilizing my son having a nurse, we're technically the Medicaid is technically paying for the services that still qualify though as respite care though, even though it's
So
not
it
through an
would,
agency?
yeah. So the respite wouldn't be with the home health. So if Medicaid's paying for the home health nurse,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could use respite to have someone else besides the home health nurse come in and give you a break. So it
Okay.
wouldn't
Now, what
know,
does it
since
look like oh, my apologies, go ahead, say that again.
no, I was just going to say if the, if Medicaid's already paying for a home health nurse, then this would be respite specific, a break, for you. So that would pay
Okay.
for someone else other than home health.
Now, what does it look like for individuals who don't have somebody in mind, like a neighbor or friend, say just a single parent, as a caregiver to a care recipient? Are they able to qualify? Are they able to sign their own timesheets and create their own timesheets, or does somebody have to technically oversee that? So there has to be another individual, like an employee to an employer type situation.
Yes, we that's a question we have a lot. We cannot um, pay caregivers to pay, to be caregivers. They have to employ a care provider to be able to use our assistance. So a lot of people, you're right, a lot of individuals don't have, a community that they can, a community of support where they have individuals they can just say, "Hey, can you come give me a break?" And I'll pay you to do this. A lot of people don't have that support system. So what we do then is we do, direct them to that provider database that we have online. So to see if community based services might be a good option for them, some of those day programs or the parent nights out at the church, that type thing, if that might be a good fit. If not, a lot of individuals will look on like care.com and, and hire a provider that way. You can't always go to an agency, but your dollars aren't going to stretch as far with an agency. Right now, the rate is about $25 an hour for skilled care through an agency is about the average. So, your respite award's not going to stretch as far with that option, but it's an option. If you really need a break, then that is an option, and you're going to get a break, just not as much of one.
Are there, specific set allotments? I know you had mentioned that funding's quarterly. Are there
Mhm.
different, allotments based on the needs of the child or individual?
So we have several different funding streams. We have, like I said, our um, universal respite, and then we have Department of Mental Health. We have been facilitating their consumer directed personal choice option respite since 2007. So we can, if you have a diagnosis that, if the care recipient has a diagnosis that falls under the guidelines of Department of Mental Health, then that's the funding stream you would be under. That funding's right now is a little bit less than what we were able to offer through Universal, but it's more frequent, if that makes sense. So you might um, get a little, like I said, smaller allotment, but more allotments throughout the year. With the universal respite, like I said, we're continually grant seeking to further support it. So, we might get a little bit more of a bump at the end of the year when grants come in. So it just depends on your diagnosis, really, the diagnosis of the care recipient, which funding stream will fall under. Um, and that'll decide how much funding you get just based on the availability of the funds. It's not because we think one diagnosis deserves more than more support than another. It's not that. It's just the funding that's available for those particular diagnoses.
And so kind of going back on that, uh, how often do the caregivers receive those reimbursement awards? Is it quarterly? Like, if they're exhausted after one quarter, can a person reapply again after the second quarter? Do they need to reapply, or do they just need to kind of follow up?
So, like I said, you never have to reapply with us once you're in the program. We just ask, we send out that little survey at the end of the fiscal year, and make sure all your information is correct, and that automatically re-enrolls you in the program. So as funds are available for each funding stream, we just automatically send you another timesheet. So once
Okay.
those funds are exhausted, then we'll let you know they've been exhausted for the year, and it'll be October 1st or September 1st before you get a new timesheet. Like right now, we don't have a waiting list, and we're expecting to have funds until the end of the fiscal year, which our fiscal year is August 31st. So right now, with the number of caregivers we're serving and the average amount of new applicants, we're expecting to have regular, quarterly funding for those caregivers until the end of the fiscal year.
Good to know. Good to know. Now, I have a question here. It says, how does ALR work with Alabama Department of Senior Services to provide
Mhm.
consumer-directed or personal choice option respite cares for caregivers on the Alabama Cares program?
So I mentioned before that we are, grantee partner with the Alabama Department of Senior Services, and so in order to expand the reach of that consumer-directed personal choice option respite to the caregivers they serve through the Alabama Cares program, so that's for caregivers age 55 and up. Um, they have 13 offices across the state, Alabama Cares programs across the state who serve caregivers statewide. And when a caregiver on any one of those programs decides that they want personal choice respite and not to go through an agency, then Alabama Cares directs them to us. We take on that referral. And so we administer those funds for Alabama Cares through ADSS to deliver that personal choice respite option through reimbursement to the caregivers on the Alabama Cares program. So last year, I think we had close to 900 caregivers statewide who were using that personal choice option for respite.
Wow, that's a lot of
So
individuals. That's awesome. Is it growing every year?
yes, yeah, it's every year, and
Good.
they they're a more permanent option. We kind of consider ourselves a gap program. So if you are on a waiting list for a more permanent respite solution like Alabama Cares or a Medicaid waiver or VA or any of those who have year-round funding, you know, we're just kind of filling the gap until you get on those. So sometimes people will be on Alabama Respite and get on with Alabama Cares, and they've gotten so used to that personal choice option, they're like, "Yeah, I want to do that," and then they come back to Alabama Respite, and they're like, "I don't know, I've met you before." So sometimes it's kind of confusing, but they contract with us to be able to carry out that service because it's what we do. And so it
It
just
makes
helps them
sense.
out. It's a great partnership. And then we're able to share those resources too with caregivers who apply with us. We say, hey, we'll absolutely put you on our program, but we think you might should apply for Alabama Cares. And so it's a great partnership.
That's amazing. It's awesome to see all the systems tie in together and work together to, provide that kind of assistance. There were a few questions that I wanted to touch on. I know we've
Mhm.
got a lot more here to go over, but I want to make sure that we get this information out to the individuals. One of them was in regards to technology provided assistance to the elderly and disabled. Uh,
Mhm.
how does that work? Are we sending out robotic dogs, or what? How
Mhm.
does that work?
We do. I have a kitty here. I was going to show you. So through one of our grants, we are able to. This is Norman.
Oh,
I've called Norman purrs, licks his little paw.
that's
You can feel him purring. He meows at you when he wants attention, and he rolls over for you to scratch his belly. And Norman's very responsive. And we have robotic pets, cats and dogs that are available to caregivers of care recipients with Alzheimer's or dementia or any memory loss um, diagnosis. And these companion pets, they're great for the care recipient to interact with. And we've had pictures and videos come in from our caregivers showing their care recipient interacting with their pet. And it's just, I mean, it's amazing. The company that makes these is called Joy for All. And really, that describes it best. They are an absolute, it's an absolute joy to see the care recipients interact with these pets. Um, they love on them just like they were a real pet and care about them. These are great though because you don't have to feed them, you don't have to clean up after them. Like he's rubbing over, he wants his belly rubbed. But they're just wonderful. They feel like real pets. Like I said, they interact with you. They want attention. And what's great about this for the caregiver, it gives the caregiver a little bit of a respite. You know, when the care recipient is interacting with the pet, you know, it provides interaction and companionship for them, but it also gives the caregiver a little bit of a break. So
That is so
they're,
adorable. I am absolutely loving that.
I don't know, I keep it on my desk lately, and
I kind of want one
whenever
just
I
for
go,
myself.
I know. Every time
That
I
is
look over at it, I
amazing.
smile, so it brings me joy. So I'm sure it does for caregiver care recipients too. But like I said, if you're enrolled with our program and you're a caregiver of a care recipient with, you know, any age-related dementia, Alzheimer's, memory loss, then you're eligible to receive one of those. We'll just send it out in the mail to you. Um, so that's a perk of being enrolled with Alabama Lifespan Respite. Some other technology that we have available, we do a training called Helping Those Who Care, and what we do is we show you lots of um, off the shelf, low tech, no tech tools to help with activities of daily living. And it's a lot of tools that OTs will show you, know, occupational therapists will show you how to use. But they're great not only for the care recipient, but for the caregiver. You know, if you can do anything that, you know, like a transfer belt or, you know, a grabber or something like that, that save strain on the care recipient's back, anything to help that care recipient transfer independently. We have tools like that that we can show them how to use that kind of saves them, the caregiver physically, from doing a lot of the lifting and transferring and things like that that they might have to do with the care recipient. Medication reminders, you know, shoelaces you don't have to tie that make, you know, a shoe slip on instead of a lace up, just all kinds of things. And we have a little guide available online on alabamarespite.org that shows a lot of those tools. We also make recommendations for caregiver apps, and the caregiver apps, a lot of them are really good for keeping up with medical appointments, medication reminders, and communicating with other family members. So, if you, or even with care providers, so, you know, it's all in one central place. So, everyone's kind of on board with the caregiving plan. So, anyway, those are some of the assistive technology offerings and resources that we have through Alabama Respite. And one that's really exciting that we're offering, not specifically to caregivers. We do offer it to caregivers, but it's really with our agency partners and with public safety, so fire departments and police departments and uh, anyone who interacts with the public and may interact with someone with a disability. We have virtual reality training for empathy, and it's through Embodied Labs, and it's currently the empathy training that we have available. We have one on vision and hearing impairments, one on Alzheimer's and dementia, one on terminal illness and end of life care, one on Parkinson's, one on trans health and LGBT aging, and a new one on social isolation, you know, due to the pandemic. But what this VR experience does is allow someone who's not familiar with caregiving, who's not familiar with chronic illness or disability, it puts them in the shoes of the individual who is experiencing those things that I talked about: vision, hearing loss, Alzheimer's, and dementia, and lets them go through a series of events in three different stages, um, dealing with all the issues that they would deal with as a result of, vision and hearing loss or Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's very eye opening. It's one of those experiences when you're done, you're just like, whew, and it's things you never thought about. Someone who has macular degeneration going through the grocery store and trying to follow a shopping list, or someone with Alzheimer's trying to cook a meal they've cooked 100 times and they can't anymore. It's just a variety of different experiences, and it's really impactful. So while we do have this training, it is available for caregivers, but it's more for those who, like I said, haven't been exposed to caregivers and care recipients, to kind of empathize with them and maybe be more empathetic and understanding when they interact with them.
That's a really great resource. It's actually something I went over on one of my segments a couple weeks ago, is being able to find ways to relate and understand what caregivers go through in comparison to like, or caregivers of parents with children versus parents, or caregivers with children of special needs versus parents without children with special needs, is being able to kind of get them to understand the day in the life of a caregiver. So those would be
Yeah.
some great resources to provide to individuals when they just don't understand, or you don't have a perfect way to explain it to them. It's just saying, here's some educational resources to kind of put you into a day in the life of my shoes, or another person's shoes as far as a caregiver. So that's really great resources. Um, One of the things also I want to touch on, because I know we're kind of getting over our little hour mark that we had talked about, but is the funding for PPE and like cleaning equipment, is that all tied into the same funding in regards to providing caregiver support or aids and then be able to get out, or is that two separate fundings?
So, as caregivers who are enrolled with Alabama Lifespan Respite, if we did a big round right before the holidays, so before Thanksgiving, we knew more than likely, even if they were doing it safely, that people were going to gather for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. And we've been isolated so long, and especially our caregivers, we wanted them to do it as safely as possible if they were going to do it. So we were able to offer PPE stipends for them to be able to buy health and hygiene items. Just because the holidays are over doesn't mean that that support is over. We still do have assistance available. So, you know, now if you're a new caregiver or you're a caregiver who missed out on that first round, if you just let us know, I could really benefit from, cleaning supplies and mask and hand sanitizer, any of those PPE items, then we can certainly we can give you a stipend to be able to purchase those items.
Awesome. And is that also a separate application on the website, or how do we
That's just
go about that process?
Yeah, that's just an
Just
ask. You can
ask.
just yeah, you just call us or email us and just let us know you have that need, and then we can make that happen for you.
Are there any specific topics you want to touch on? I know we're running kind of any time, and I don't want to take too much more from your day. That you
Sure.
want to like make sure that we let the caregivers and care recipients know that Lifespan Alabama is able to do.
Yes, our with our new grant that started over this year, something new we're able to offer is our Caregiver Wellness Initiative, and it is supported by our federal grant, our state grant, and also by the Daniel Foundation of Alabama and Venturi Rider Day Fund. We have chats, we have monthly support groups for caregivers, we have more emergency respite funding available than we do in a typical year. But the biggest thing to come out of this initiative is we are able to offer free mental health counseling to caregivers enrolled with our program. So right now, a lot of mental health providers are still doing telepractice. So if what's preventing you from seeking that assistance is that you don't have the technology available, we can get you a tablet to be able to access telemedicine and visit with the mental health professional. But, as we've talked about, and as everyone knows, caregiving is hard, and this social isolation that we have experienced as a result of the pandemic has made it so much harder. And a lot of our caregivers were just calling and saying, I just need somebody to talk to. And we have social workers on staff, and we're glad to do that. That's why we established the care chats. You can call and make an appointment, and we'll sit and talk with you for as long as you want about whatever's on your mind. But if you need to step above that, if you really need a mental health professional to help you through what you're going through as a caregiver, whether that be strain on your marriage, strain on your finances, just mental and physical exhaustion, whatever it is you need to talk to that mental health professional about, you can do through funding through this caregiver wellness initiative. And it is an application process. You just go and apply online. Instead, if you're already a client with us, if you're a caregiver enrolled with Alabama Lifespan Respite, real simple application. We're just verifying that you're in our program, and it just asks one basic question. How would you benefit from mental health counseling? And we opened this up February 1st, and I mean, within a week, we had over 30 applicants, and I was so glad. I was worried
Wow.
there might be stigma attached or hesitancy, but those caregivers, like I said, we saw the need, we knew it was there, and once we made it available, they responded in a big way. So we do have a list of mental health providers who have agreed to do direct pay. So you don't have to, you don't have to file with insurance. You don't have to worry about any billing, anything like that. We work directly with the care provider just for billing only. We don't know anything about your situation other than they're sending us the bill for the care that you've received. And you can pick from that list, or if you already have someone in your community that you're familiar with and would prefer to receive, mental health counseling with that provider, that's fine. Just tell us who you want to see. We'll call them and arrange direct billing. So initially, we start out with 3 visits to the mental health provider, again, on site or through telemedicine. And then at that point, if the caregiver and the mental health provider agree that more sessions are needed, then we can, go forth with funding from that point. But we just start with 3. And like I said, we've just got it going, and it seems to be helping caregivers, but we want more caregivers to apply. We want them to get that assistance. We know it's needed and it's important. Like I said, we have to, you know, take care of our whole caregiver. We have to make sure you're taking care of yourself mentally and physically, and this is just another part of that we're offering.
Are they licensed clinical or counselors or therapists, or is it just a group of all of them?
It's there. Everyone that we have on our list is a licensed mental health provider.
That's really amazing. That's awesome. With the mental health providers that you have, if they recognize that you may need the aid of like prescription, are they able to provide that too as well for those who may be going through severe anxiety and depression because of those things, or are they just able to provide like more of a counseling based session?
To the best of my knowledge, it's counseling based. Like I said, the only thing we know past the point of we're connecting you with a provider is we get the bill. So anything that happens in between
Okay.
is between you and the mental health provider. So our
Okay,
the
that's
funding that's available for it specifically to pay the provider for the sessions.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I actually just recently had started counseling services through the Children's Hospital of Alabama, and just during these past 3 or 4 weeks, I can't tell you how much better I felt just being able to talk with somebody and speak with somebody. I have my friends, I have my family, but one of the biggest issues I have with my friends and my family is that they will always agree with you. They will
Yeah.
usually, they'll side with you. And having a counselor, they're there to listen, but they also kind of play the devil's advocate in regards to just saying, hey, put yourself in this position, think about it like this. They're not necessarily there to be your friend, they're there to help you coach through your life's hard lessons. And that's one thing that's really great about having a counselor and having somebody there. So definitely a great resource, a really huge resource for caregivers to have. Were
Yeah.
there a couple of other initiatives that you wanted to kind of go over, that are
Let's see.
important for?
Well, one thing I do quickly want to talk about, we have those community and faith-based programs that I talked about. They're out in the community if that's what the caregiver and the care recipient are comfortable doing. We offer technical assistance for those faith-based programs and community-based programs. So if they need resources, if they want to know more about respite before they get started, we're glad to talk them through that process. If they need help writing grants, we're glad to help them with that. And speaking of grants, we do have some grant money available for those community and faith-based programs to expand or enhance the community-based programs that they have going on that are specific for respite. So that's something else we do. We offer those grants usually in the summer, and we'll post it on our website and on our social media, so we know, so everyone knows that that's available. We offer quarterly respite clinics, and right now we're doing them online. We usually have done them on site, in different areas of the state. But if anyone just wants to know more about respite, if they're already enrolled and want to understand more about how to fill out their timesheets or whatever, it's just a time to talk about what is Alabama Lifespan Respite and how do I get started. So watch for those on our calendar of events. If you're a caregiver and you've got the respite piece figured out, but you may need some other assistance, like, you may need help with your utility bill or looking for durable medical equipment, give us a call. We don't do all those things, but we can put you in touch with the people who do. So, we're here as a resource. We are here to help the caregivers. So it doesn't have to be specifically about respite. Whatever you need, we will try to help. And if we can't, we'll get you to the people who can. Um, so that's, some more of the things we do. And I mentioned when we started, about the history of Alabama Respite and those individuals who came together and helped get us started. That turned into the Alabama Lifespan Respite Coalition. And the coalition is appointed by the governor. And it's a group of partners who help us, address all the challenges of caregiving across the state, and help us advise the Alabama legislature on the challenges of caregiving. So we send out caregiver surveys sometimes. We gather as much information as we can to get in front of the legislators and let them know what caregiving issues there are. And some of those biggest issues right now are care provider workforce. I know we touched on that. Part of the problem in finding a care provider is they're just not out there. It's
Yeah.
There's not a lot of training available. There isn't consistent certification statewide for care providers and training. And so there's a workforce shortage, and we're concerned about that currently, of course, but there's going to be an increased demand every year. But I read a statistic recently in the ADSS state plan on aging that just jarred me. Alabama's 65 and older population is projected to increase by 83% by the year 2040.
Wow.
And that's going to result in a lot of individuals who will need care provision. And if we don't start addressing this caregiver workforce shortage now, and finding ways to get them trained, finding certifications for them, getting good pay for these care providers, we're going to be in trouble. So a white paper was recently presented by the Alabama Lifespan Respite Coalition in conjunction with ADSS and Alabama AARP to update our legislators on these needs. And in conjunction with that state plan on aging, we're pushing for funding and for partners to help shore up that workforce and, you know, help us get ahead of this. So not only address the current needs, but to help get ahead of this. And there's lots of other great information there for our legislators, but advocacy is a piece that we want our caregivers to know that we work on diligently too. While we're working every day with the caregiver, we're gathering information, we're paying attention to the needs, and we're getting that to the state level and trying to get more help and assistance to support our caregivers.
Well, this is the last question that I have for you. And you kind of already touched on it. When what are some caregiver issues that are important for legislators to understand and support? But what can we do as caregivers to help aid in that process? Is there a website that we can go to and just say, "Hey, this is a need that I've realized as a caregiver"? Like, is there a place that my son's nurse can go to and just say, "Hey, you know, write a letter, type who do we send this information to let them know that the demand is great and that it's not just coming from the agencies that are supporting it, but it's also coming from the caregivers themselves."
Yes. Your local legislators are a great place to start and just shoot them an email and or send them a letter and say, this is something that's important to me. And, the more, the more that our legislators statewide hear that, we're kind of focusing on a select few, those who are directly involved with the, on the health committee and in education and, very specific legislators who we're trying to get this in front of so they can push the legislation to support caregivers. But we need that local grassroots level. We need you to let your local legislators know that that care provider work shortage and the provision of adequate training and certification and pay for those care providers is important. That caregiver rights are important. Whatever it is that's important to you as a caregiver or care provider, just let your legislator know. And then when they go into those committees with those key legislators that we make contact with, they're going to say, hey, I have constituents in my area who have already alerted me to this problem. That this is an issue that needs my attention. So that's what we need is at that grassroots level, everyone just letting their legislators know. And on our social media too, when like a big bill comes up or something, we will put it on there and we will ask you then to specifically, we'll say, contact this legislator about this issue if it's something that's important to you as a caregiver. So, it's good to watch our social media for that as well. Um, but we will this year start a caregiver task force, and that will give caregivers, just caregivers, it's separate from the coalition. We want caregivers to come together and tell us what is important. Maybe we're, um, you know, there's something we're not seeing. Maybe there's something we're not addressing, and then we'll give them a voice to be in front of the legislators themselves. So that's something that'll be coming this calendar year too.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for coming on and spending this
Thank
time and
you.
educating all of us about all this wonderful information from the technology dependent, about funding, about how to get a break. That awesome little kitty cat you showed us, that was amazing. I really want one. So I'm going to be on your website trying to figure out how to get one of those, and I'm applying for that as well. And then just being able to get in touch with our legislators to let them know, the dire need to provide more funding as the time progresses. That was a really mind-blowing fact, knowing that by 2040, 86% of Alabamans will be part of that 65 plus community.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to say is that, like, I love the way you broke it down, that there's four different type of people. There's caregivers, there's care recipients, there's those who need care, and those that will be needing care in the future. And everything that Alabama Lifespan Respite is working towards is making sure that we get that covered. So I want to just say thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for coming on and educating us. And I hope
Thank
that
you.
you have yourself a wonderful rest of the week.
Thanks, you too.